Good morning, class. I wanted to make a few announcements to kick off this week and just get us all on the same page. So first of all, I want you to know that today, tomorrow, and maybe into the day after, I'm going to be reviewing all of those conversations from this last week. I kind of kept my eye on them briefly, but I want to dig in. I want to reflect on the quality of the conversations and give you guys some comments. And thus far, just in terms of the grading system, I want you to know that everything that you've completed is just going to be complete incomplete. So if I see anything that I'm concerned about, I'll reach out to you and I'll give you the opportunity to revise that. I don't really think that's going to be an issue, but I wanted to start off with complete incomplete and get a sense for the group and get a sense for the skills that you're coming in with and maybe the skills that you'll want to grow with, and then develop some rubrics and more nuanced expectations for coming assignments. So like I said, over the next 3 days, I'll be pushing out some comments and some information about all of that so that you guys know kind of how to push yourselves in the coming weeks. Now, this week you're going to read Charlotte's Web, which why did I say that so excitedly? I guess I am excited. I'll give a little bit of a confession and maybe I'll dig into this later, but I picked that book up because the person who's been teaching children's literature at LCC for the last 20 years, he was assigning it, and I thought, well, that's nice. It's something that's just kind of built into the course already. But to be frank, I have a memory of the book being really depressing, and so when everyone says, oh, I love that book, I'm always like, oh, that book makes me sad. And it still does, which is my own thing you can analyze later. Anyway, I'll be really excited to see how you guys react to Charlotte's Web. Just so you know, there's some really detailed instructions, but before you start reading Charlotte's Web again, before you read Chapter 4 of Russell's textbook, which is also this week, before you do any of that, go do a brief, it would take you 15 minutes pre-write, and that's in the discussion instructions as well. So it'll say, read this, and then it'll say, before you read, answer this one question. Okay, so there's going to be a post that you need to make answering questions in response to Charlotte's Web by Friday night, and then by Sunday you're going to reply to each other, and you'll actually go back and edit your original post, add to it, because you're probably not going to finish all of Charlotte's Web by Friday. You're probably going to need until Monday. If I said Sunday, sorry, you'll need until Monday to finish, to edit your post, and then to reply to some others. And if you don't have your books still, I think there are only 3 of you based on the survey who might be in that realm. Please either come up with a plan on your own and then you don't need to let me know. But if you're truly stuck, reach out immediately. There's one extra little thing. You need to post your ideas for the project coming up. Basically, at the end of Chapter 4, it starts discussing literary criticism, and there are multiple lenses laid out, and I'll just give you guys a sneak peek. Next week, you're going to work on a project related to Charlotte's Web and literary criticism, but I only want you to just decide which lens you want to use. So at the end of Russell's Chapter 4, you can be thinking about that. Which lens do I want to apply to Charlotte's Web? And then by Monday night, you just have to choose. So you don't have to do any work on that, really. I want to give a note about lenses before we get there. And I think I'll do a more in-depth look at that later. I'll post a lecture or video. But basically, what I want you to know is that lenses ask us to be hyper-focused on an element of the story that isn't always there. So some readers, or especially students, will find it frustrating because this lens isn't in your text. But for instance, there are some textbooks that include the Marxist lens, and so that immediately by name, people are like, I don't want to do anything that's Marxist, and that's kind of just a stumbling block. The Marxist lens relies on the idea of class to analyze a text. So it's maybe there are no themes overtly about class built into a short story or a poem, but if you use the Marxist lens, you say, well, if class were the most important thing to look at in this story. If it were. It's not necessarily, that's a hypothetical, but if it were, what would I see that I'm not seeing right now? And then you pluck that stuff out, and that's where people get really uncomfortable because they're like, well, that was forced. That really isn't there. But just hear me out. You pluck those things from the story, and then you say, okay, through a hyper-focused reading, I identified these things that may be there or may not be. Do I find any value in what I've discovered? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So sometimes you're like, whoa, that's not really a theme, but that's kind of a fascinating way to look at that. And I'll reiterate this, I hope, often throughout the week and then next week, but this isn't what we do when we read, for instance, Charlotte's Web with children. We're not going to be like, please now, children, analyze this story about a pig and a spider through the Marxist lens. No. And so then you might ask, well, then why do I have to do that? And I wondered that as well. I wonder that. And you can keep that skepticism in place. That's great. It's good to be thinking critically and resisting and embracing as a learner. But one argument that really made sense to me was that if I'm going to present a bunch of books to children in a classroom, and let's say like fourth grade classroom, or I don't know, because maybe you're not going to be in a classroom. Maybe it's, down the hall in my son's bedroom someday when I'm reading to him. It's helpful for me to know what all is in there. What are the potential offshoots? What are the potential depths of this text? And even though Hilo and I, let's say, might never get there, I know what is there, so I know what to illuminate and bring out for him. So I'm exercising my ability to examine depth so that I can choose, well, which shallow waters do I want him to play in? What else do I need to tell you guys? I think that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. Honestly, I'm just really excited to spend a little bit more time in the conversation with you this week, and look forward to some emails from me to clarify things in the coming days surrounding how we're doing thus far. And just let me know if you have any questions or comments or you want to talk about what you're learning. I'm really enjoying putting all of this together for you. I'm already reviewing what you guys are doing and taking notes for how I want to embrace new things for next quarter. So thank you so much for your energy and your engagement, and I hope you guys have an awesome week.